think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
Hey, folks. Hey, welcome to the program. Thanks so much for being with us. This is, what is today? Monday. This is December the 30th. And here we are. You have found the intersection of conservative ideas and reality where we are building a liberty machine. So glad that you guys are with us up and broadcasting here for a few remaining days, broadcasting on terrestrial radio stations. Of course, we got the big changeover coming up. I guess tomorrow will be our last day. Then we'll be hitting the ground running on Thursday, January the 2nd. For our, digital shows, digital content, making the big switch. And so you want to stay tuned for that. In the meantime, we have a lot of news to get to. A lot of stuff has happened over the holiday weekend. And, you can't help but start with the tragedies that happened. I mean, those are the biggest things. We had a synagogue stabbing, a guy with a machete. And then you had a church in Texas where a guy with a shotgun started unloading on parishioners and was taken out by a security, by a couple of people. I think one of the guys was a security guard, and there was other parishioners armed there. This happened, they say, in response that churchgoers are now able to arm themselves because of essentially a law that deregulated security teams. Now, here in Arkansas, just so you know, because I've had some people asking this, here in Arkansas, it's up to each individual church, according to state laws, for what you want to do. If you want to allow your churchgoers to carry weapons, it'd be the church's prerogative to figure out how you want to make that happen. Do you want to form a security team? Do you want to not? Do you just want to let people that have guns carry guns? It's totally up to the individual churches, and that's obviously how it should be. We're talking about autonomous bodies, and they should be able to determine how they want to best police. This stuff's getting more and more common, though. It's getting more and more common. It's really, really sad to see this. But at the same time, I mean, I'm not going to lie. I think about it a lot in terms of, where we worship, where I worship, where my family worships, and want to be prepared. Telephone number 870-275-9799 is the telephone number. If you want to text into the program this morning, 1 second. For those of you watching online, you understand what's going on right now, right? So, Joe's not here today, and so because he's not, I'm kind of a one-man show here in terms of operating everything, all the bells and whistles and that sort of thing. So I've got got big shoes to fill here. All right, let's talk about, first off, this is the first headline that I saw this morning. It was very odd to me. I almost didn't believe it. But then, of course, you've got to take into consideration that this is the radical liberal progressive left that we're talking about here. So if you go to Breitbart.com, this was on the front page this morning, that leftists are blaming Trump for the rise in anti-Semitism in the wake of Hanukkah stabbing attack. And I thought to myself, really? We're going to blame Trump, because this isn't the first time. There's been a few other anti-Semitic acts that have happened over the last year. And here we are winding down. By the way, 2020 is on its way. Get ready, folks. I got some thoughts on what I hope 2020 will reveal. Coming up later. This is from Penny Starr. I've never read any of her work. In the past 24 hours since a man attacked a Hanukkah celebration in Muncie, New York, the left is blaming Donald Trump for inciting the kind of anti-Semitism that led to the crime. Really? Donald Trump said, I mean, I'm sure Donald Trump said a few things about George Soros before, but that's right? That's now anti-Semitic, right? If you say anything about George Soros, that's now anti-Semitic. Washington Post on Sunday cited Trump's critics in its report on the stabbings. Quote, some House Democrats singled out the president for criticism, arguing that he has been insufficiently clear in denouncing anti-Semitism and has frequently perpetuated offensive stereotypes about Jewish people. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me right now? This coming from the party of Rashida Tlaib and what's the other one? Ilhan Omar, who was like, oh, some people did something on 9/11. Remember that one? And they have repeatedly made anti-Semitic comments, and they have not condemned. They have not been. The Democrats have not condemned them. As a matter of fact, many people believe they are pushing forward with impeachment, or did. Now they're holding it up on such flimsy grounds because of the radical left wing of their party. Yeah, and it is flimsy, by the way. That's a whole nother thing. Can you imagine if we went around impeaching presidents just because we disagreed with their policy? Here's the thing. Donald Trump has a phone call. He has a phone call about a potential investigation. Oh, we're going to impeach him for it. Yet Joe Biden, the guy who actually withheld money and actually was trying to bail out a family member, his son, from being investigated, that's totally fine. In the same light, Barack Obama, right? Barack Obama gave guns to Mexican drug cartels. Then they used that gun to kill border agent Brian Terry. Not an impeachable offense. No, he didn't get impeached for that. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. And I think most of the American people understand that. I really do. You have to get beyond, there's something going on where people just don't, and I've tried to talk about this before. I've tried to explain it, but I really think, this idea that Donald Trump is some sort of, is any different than, the news media is now telling people that their government isn't decent when it was never decent to begin with. And that's why everybody's freaking out. Well, not everybody, but you get the point. That's why there are so many people that are under this spell that Trump is somehow... Now, don't get me wrong. He's a giant agent of change. He is a giant agent of change. He's basically sparked, as I've said before, he's sparked this immune system in Washington. They're reacting to this virus because he's actually... See, the power of the presidency, the power of the executive branch, has done nothing but grow, to my dismay. But over the last 100 years in this country, the power of the President of the United States has continued to grow and grow and grow and grow. And, we could talk about how it's it's gone outside the text of the Constitution. We sure can. But that's just the bottom line is. Jurisprudence has also ruled on it and everything else, and it's grown and grown and grown and grown. Well, now that you have a guy, okay, who's going to use that power, but he's going to use it in a different way that the swamp disagrees with and that the globalists disagree with. Now all of a sudden it's a huge problem. Now all of a sudden our government's not decent when these people have been using this morality that we hold dear as a cloak to deceive all of us. Now the news media tells you your government, and then your idol comes crashing down, and this idea of, well, we thought we had people that could read a speech real well on a teleprompter. That made us feel good. Sorry about that, folks. I've had a lot of pent-up energy since the Christmas holiday. Earlier this month, Trump prompted an outcry from Jewish groups after he delivered a speech. This is again from the Washington Post, in which he sought to convince a Jewish audience that they had no choice but to vote for him or else they would lose money. So, so Trump tried to get Jewish people to vote for him, sparked a machete attack against Jewish people? Again, you can believe the opposite. The news priests, these anchors that are essentially clergy today, you can believe the opposite of what they say most of the time. And I don't mean like, well, you don't have all. I mean, we're to the point, and this is scary to me. You can believe the complete opposite. It's very scary when the press that's supposed to pick truth to power just is lying to you because they have something to lose. So here's more on the Texas pastor. So that's the tragedy that happened at the synagogue. Now we have a Texas pastor. This headline from the Daily Caller: Texas pastor thanks God his congregants had the right to defend themselves. West Freeway Church of Christ senior minister Britt Farmer responded to the tragic shooting in his Texas church Sunday by saying that he's thankful his congregants had the right to defend themselves. Oh, by the way, Arkansas, I just want to make sure you know this. The reason why here in Arkansas, church members, or churches, let's say churches specifically, are able to decide and make up their own security policies. The reason you're able to do that is because of a law that was passed and sponsored by former State Senator Brian King, a guy who was that the governor was not a fan of, let's say. So he's no longer Senator Brian King, but he was. He's also the same senator that ran the Medicaid disclosure law that would have stopped a lot of this, exposed a lot of the corruption that now we're seeing people go to jail for. That guy, yeah. Not exactly somebody the establishment wanted here in the state of Arkansas. Oh, by the way, still waiting on an in-depth article from the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette about the governor, Asa Hutchinson, his law firm, his son, the Chinese companies. Same Chinese companies that are coming to Arkansas are the same ones that are giving the governor's law firm, that's run by his son. He says that he will not go back into it. He doesn't have any financial interest into it. When he leaves office, he's saying, I'm not going to go back to this law firm. He says, I don't anticipate going. Still waiting for the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette to write a story about that huge problem that Asa Hutchinson has. We shall see, though. Let's see. After thanking Governor Texas, let me just play this for you. This is the pastor of the West Freeway Church of Christ, senior minister Britt Farmer. This is what he said in light of the tragedy. Again, a shooting happened at his congregation yesterday, at his church yesterday, and it was taken out. They immediately, the man with the shotgun did take out two of his congregants, killed them. But then this man was also, the shooter was also gunned down, or was taken out pretty swiftly. If you've seen the video, it is graphic, very graphic video. But if you've seen it, then you know what I'm talking about. But here's the senior pastor, what he had to say.
Senior minister at the West Freeway Church of Christ. First off, I want to say that I am extremely thankful to Lieutenant Governor and the Governor, Governor Patrick and Governor Abbott, and their rapid response to this. To the law enforcement agencies that have been here, we couldn't have asked for more professional, seamless interviews and work with our congregation and our people, and the kindness that was shown to them by law enforcement. We lost two great men today, but it could have been a lot worse. And I'm thankful that our government has allowed us the opportunity to protect ourselves. We have a congregation here of open-hearted people. We help people. We're here to help people. And to have something like this happen destroys my heart. And when I say destroys it because there is evil in this world. Today is one sermon I'll never preach. It'll go away. It was called Leaving a Legacy. And two men today left a legacy. But a congregation is going to build on that legacy. We'll have a church-wide.
All right, again, that's a pastor there of West Freeway Church of Christ, senior minister Britt Farmer, on the tragedy of the shooting that happened over the weekend. They were finishing communion, and the video is a man in a trench coat, and he pulled out a shotgun. Texas DPS Director Jeff Williams, quote, "The citizens who were inside that church undoubtedly saved 242 other parishioners It was miraculous, true heroes. Let's see what he had to say here.
It cannot be overstated how important it is that everyone recognize what took place here today. The citizens who were inside that church undoubtedly saved 242 other parishioners. And that might get swept aside in this whole conversation about active shooter response, and God knows law enforcement has done a whole bunch of work to make our response better. We needed to do that, but we're starting to find out that, as the Lieutenant Governor mentioned, over half of these are over before we get there. And I want to commend the chief and his department. Their response was, I mean, it's never going to get faster than that. It was miraculous. And so the true heroes in this are the people who were sitting in those pews today and responded, the immediate responders that saved their fellow citizens. And I just can't overstate how critical that is. It's for everyone to recognize it is truly heroic. And the citizens of this community have a lot to be proud of for their response.
Now, think about that for a second. I mean, that's really, really a good statement there by Texas DPS Director Jeff Williams. But he said it's not going to get faster than that. Think about that for a second. If you've seen the video, then you know. He started shooting, and then this man was put down within seconds of opening fire on this congregation. I mean, it was almost instantaneous. Obviously, there was the loss of life. I mean, he did get to some people, too. But then he was immediate, and it said it's not going to get faster than that. So what does that mean what does that mean for, I mean, there's a stark reality that's being communicated here, and that is, I mean, you have a guy in Texas government saying, listen, I mean, we work really hard for law enforcement to be able to respond as fast as we can, but we can't do it as good as an armed society can do it themselves. We can still be of use, we can still protect, we can still serve. But when it comes to a situation like that, you are responsible for your own safety, and you are the best arbiter of that, and we have the Second Amendment. The God-given right to protect ourselves, self-preservation, if you will. So, fascinating admission at it. That's Texas for you right there. That's what that is. Just speaking the truth about the situation. And, you know, the left's response anytime there's some sort of mass shooting is to try to make it harder for you to get a gun. I mean, the criminals are going to get the gun. I mean, it's really kind of messed up from a moral sense as far as I'm concerned that, you know, we have as a society we're degrading more and more morally, where people are willing to murder other people more easily, you know, and they have such a low thought of what human life is. So bullets are flying in your law-abiding citizens' direction. And the government's response, the Democrats' response, is to take your guns away? That's pretty cruel, man. That's pretty messed up if you think about it. To make you and your family more defenseless? That's your solution? Doesn't really seem like you care very much about the citizens you claim to care about. Maybe it's just me. Folks, we have got to go to break. We're going to be back here in just a moment. Don't go anywhere, okay? Don't go anywhere. Back in a moment. Folks, as a taxpayer or business owner, I know the government rarely gives the people a break. Big government politicians seem to always want more money from us, taxpayers. So if you want to support the work we're doing right here at Conduit News, bringing you the truth, then why not consider giving less money to the government that never stops overspending and overtaxing us by giving a tax-deductible donation to Conduit for Commerce, the premier organization in Arkansas that never stops promoting small business and limited government. Just go to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Support Our Cause. From there, you can decide if you want to donate monthly or one time. Give the government that's using your tax dollars to grow and grow less, and give the people fighting for your values more. Conduitforcommerce.org.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is building a liberty machine. Find out more at conduitnews.com.
All right, welcome back. Oh, we got the wrong one. I'm done. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Coming up at the bottom of this hour, we're going to be talking with Dr. Michael Busler. A few of these stories here. I just want to, he knows what he's talking about in terms of, he keeps track of the numbers, economic numbers more than I. The economy seems to be doing well. We had NASDAQ getting to records. I want to talk to him about that. I want to talk to him about GDP, that sort of thing, everything. Oh, by the way, one of the things we didn't talk about, Arkansas Democrat Gazette reporting this morning about U.S. airstrikes. U.S. airstrikes target militia in Iraq, Syria. Action cited as retaliation against Iran-backed group. Let's see here. The U.S. carried out military strikes in Iraq and Syria targeting an Iranian-backed Iraqi militia, blamed for a rocket attack that killed an American contractor, Defense Secretary Mark Esper said on Sunday. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said the strikes send the message that the U.S. will not tolerate actions by Iran that jeopardize American lives. Precision defensive strikes were conducted against 5 sites of the Kataib Hezbollah. Defense Department spokesman Jonathan Hoffman said in a statement, the U.S. blames the militia for a rocket barrage Friday that killed a U.S. defense contractor at a military compound near Kirkuk in northern Iraq. Officials said as many as 30 rockets were fired in Friday's assault. Esper said the U.S. hit 3 of the militia's sites in western Iraq and 2 in eastern Syria, including a weapon depot and the militia's command control base. Interesting. Are we basically doing that? Hey, if you mess with us, we're going to bomb you back to the Stone Age and come home. Foreign policy, is that what we're doing? It kind of seems like it, doesn't it? But as all things, I mean, it's especially with foreign policy, it is extremely complicated. There's no doubt about that. Man. So that happened. We're going to keep an eye on that, and also over the holiday. Domestically, we had these 2 violent situations with the synagogue and the church in Texas. Then we have these, Iran trying to do some saber rattling of some kind, Iraqi militias backed by Iran, and then you also have North Korea, which has been a very fascinating year with North Korea, hasn't it? You have North Korea saying that they had a Christmas present for the president, kind of a threatening thing or for Americans, and the president was like, well, I don't know, maybe it's a nice vase. And so you had that situation, and Kim Jong-un is kind of saying, hey, maybe we need to be more offensive, or we need to take – I don't know. Who knows what the state of those talks are? As I was listening to the press reports about it, though, coming in on the way into work, I thought to myself, can I really believe anything that CNN or the mainstream media is telling me about what North Korea is actually doing, what Kim Jong-un's relationship is right now with President Donald Trump? Because, they did this the last time, and they were shaking hands, and he was walking across the neutral zone. You know what I mean? The mainstream media last time was telling you how terrible, we can't. I mean, the mainstream media doesn't want peace with North Korea because President Trump will get credit, just like they didn't actually want to fix the DACA situation because then it would have given the president credit, which he was willing to do, by the way. We've got Michael Busler coming your way next.
As we speak, Beijing is employing a whole-of-government approach, using political, economic, and military tools as well as propaganda to advance its influence and benefit its interests in the United States.
And I have wanted to welcome back to Arkansas Chairman Chu. Please give Chairman Chu a round of applause.
China is also applying this power in more proactive ways than ever before to exert influence and interfere in the domestic policy and politics of this country.
Chairman Chu, I got to know as he is the CEO and chairman of Shandong Ruyi Technology Group out of Shandong Province.
Over the past 17 years, China's GDP has grown ninefold. It's become the second largest economy in the world. Much of this success was driven by American investment in China. And the Chinese Communist Party has also used an arsenal of policies inconsistent with free and fair trade, including tariffs, quotas, currency manipulation, forced technology transfer, intellectual property theft, and industrial subsidies that are handed out like candy to foreign investment.
We've been to Shandong Province a number of times since I've been governor. We've called on people, and Chairman Chu gave us the opportunity to meet with him at Ruyi, at their technology group there in Shandong, and saw his incredible facility. We asked him to visit Arkansas. He did. So Chairman Chu, we're delighted to have you here. I'm excited about signing this agreement with you, and I welcome you to Arkansas.
These policies have built Beijing's manufacturing base at the expense of its competitors, especially the United States of America.
And I wanted to recognize Chairman Lee to my right, who is the founder of Sun Paper of Shandong Province in China. I also want to recognize Secretary Ma of Shandong Province.
As President Trump said just this week, in his words, we rebuilt China.
Bringing you your daily dose of truth. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, folks. Hey, welcome back to the show this morning. Thank you so much for being with us. You can text me at 870-275-9799. Also, you can sound off on the Facebook page right now, up at facebook.com/Conduit News. That's facebook.com/Conduit News. Folks, he is a public policy analyst, economics expert, also professor of finance at Stockton University in New Jersey. Dr. Michael Buster is back with us. Michael, how are you, sir?
I'm doing very well, Paul. Thanks for having me. It's always my pleasure to be here.
Yes, sir. I've got this story here. Let me pull it up for us. NASDAQ streak of records ends after mixed session for Wall Street. This was on the 27th. What are your thoughts on the economic numbers as we get towards the beginning of a new year?
Well, I'm very optimistic. The consensus view from economists is that next year the economy will slow down. I don't agree with that. I think the economy is going to show surprising strength when the fourth quarter numbers are released in January, and I think that's going to lead into a fairly strong 2020. In fact, I think growth next year will be higher than it is this year, and I say that for a couple of reasons. One, recall when President Trump got into office, he set economic growth as his top priority. So the first thing he did was get rid of a lot of regulations that were really counterproductive. He can do that through executive order. Then he convinced Congress to cut taxes for all Americans, for the middle class, to stimulate demand in the economy and for the upper classes and corporations to add new capital to the economy for growth. Well, the tax cut went into effect in 2018. The economy grew at just about a 3% rate, and it would have been higher had the Federal Reserve not been so aggressive. Again, the Federal Reserve raised interest rates 8 times between the end of 2016 and the end of 2018. So as the economy was starting to grow in 2018, the Federal Reserve was raising interest rates and shrinking the money supply. What happened then, it held growth to around 3%, which was much better than we've seen in the past in 2018, but then it started to slow growth down in 2019. Well, the Fed realized that they'd made a mistake, so in July, they started to cut interest rates. They've dropped interest rates 3 times, and they've stopped shrinking the money supply. So what that is going to do, I think fourth quarter, as I mentioned, will be stronger than most people think, and that's led by the consumer. And Christmas sales are doing much better than last year. All of the numbers are not in yet, but it looks like we're going to be about 3.5% to 4% better this year than we were last year. And with the consumer feeling extremely confident, with consumer wages rising at the fastest rate literally in decades, and with inflation remaining relatively low, under 2%, those wage increases translate into real increases in purchasing power. So I think next year the consumer will help lead an increase in economic growth. I also see all of the trade issues being resolved very favorably. Again, when President Trump got into office, he looked at all the trade agreements for whatever reason. Every single one of them was slanted in favor of our trading partners and to the detriment of the U.S. For instance, in the automobile industry, they made a car in Europe and sold it in the U.S. We charged a 2.5% tariff. We made a car in the U.S., sold it in Europe. They charged a 10% tariff. In China, they sold a car here, 2.5% tariff. They charged us a 25% tariff. Well, the result of that was we're buying a lot of foreign goods, and they're not buying very many of ours, and we had this negative balance of trade. So President Trump confronted that immediately, and he has been very successful. We have a new trade agreement with Mexico and Canada, which was just ratified by Congress. We have a new trade agreement with South Korea, rather. We have a new agreement with Japan. India and the European Union are talking with us, and we're coming up with something with China. So with all those positive things, I'm very optimistic about next year.
So, I mean, I've got some stories to kind of back up what you're saying here, especially this one here. Low-wage workers are getting bigger raises than their bosses. This is from CBS News. The 25% lowest-paid Americans enjoyed a 4.5% income boost in November that outpaced a 2.9% gain in earnings for the country's highest-paid workers. That's incredibly bad news for people that are, just anti-Trump, never want to give him the benefit of the doubt for anything he does.
More importantly, it's great news for America. So the prior administration emphasized how we have a big income inequality problem. Now, their solution to that is overtaxing people that earned income and giving that money to people who, for whatever reason, haven't earned income. Now, that's not really a long-term solution. In fact, it will tend to stagnate the economy. What President Trump is doing is saying, look, what people really need at lower income levels is what they really need is opportunity. So I'm going to get economic growth up. It's going to provide opportunity for everyone. And what's happening, as you point out, is that people with lower incomes are seeing greater wage increases than people with average or higher income. So President Trump is really helping the people that need the help the most, even though the Democrats continue to tout the tax cut. All it did was cut taxes for the wealthy. It really didn't help anybody else. Now, that's absolutely not true. The tax cut helped everyone. He did cut taxes for the wealthy and corporations, but that creates new capital. and the new capital will allow the economy to expand as it has. And as the economy expands, it provides new job opportunities for people who don't have very good jobs, or there are many people that have dropped out of the workforce because they couldn't find a job. They're starting to come back into the workforce. This is great news for all America, but especially for lower income America and a lot of the minority groups too. African American, Hispanic, and women entering the workforce for the first time. The unemployment rate there is at or near historic lows. That's really the way to help people that need something. It's not just to give it to them, but rather give them the opportunity to earn the income so they can purchase it themselves. And that's what President Trump is doing.
Here we got Dr. Michael Bustler with us, professor of finance at Stockton University, New Jersey, economic expert. I mean, to your point, it's good for all Americans. So, I mean, the left can rightfully point to the fact that these, the tax policy, it was good for the rich. But your point is it's good for everybody. But see, I'm not one of these guys. When I see this headline here, this is back on December 27th, Bloomberg.com. Bizarre fortunes flourish as world's richest gain $1.2 trillion. Okay? I mean, that's not a bad thing, is it, Dr. Bustler?
No, it certainly isn't. Look, if they're gaining that much, it means they're doing something that the economy needs. The way people get wealthy and earn a lot of income is to produce something that the economy needs. Sometimes the economy doesn't even know it needs it until someone, an entrepreneur, takes a chance. For instance, Jeff Bezos said, look, it's very inefficient the way that we purchase goods, go to the store and buy things. It takes up a whole lot of time. What people really need is to be able to purchase goods, particularly goods you buy routinely and don't have to see all the time, is to purchase goods online and save everybody a whole lot of time and trouble and money. Well, hundreds of millions of people worldwide realize that, yeah, that is something that we need. They take advantage of that. And as a result, Jeff Bezos was able to earn huge amounts of money. Well, you just mentioned the wealthy are gaining more. It's because they're investing. The economies are expanding. They're providing goods that the consumers need. So when you see people becoming a billionaire, the Democrats say we don't need any more billionaires. I say it's exactly the opposite. We need as many billionaires as we can get, because everyone that becomes a billionaire did so by providing something that the economy needed. So this is a good thing. It's not a bad thing.
I completely agree. And I also want to say, I also want to point out, you have said on the program before that, as things have gotten better, and we're not hearing, I don't think, we're hearing near as much of how good things really are from the mainstream media. But as things have gotten better, you as a professor have noticed your students are able to get jobs easier once they graduate. Is that right?
That's true. And I also noticed that many of the students that were underemployed the prior decade really are finding much more opportunities. In other words, because we had a stagnant economy during the prior administration, when students were graduating, it was very difficult to find a good job. Many times they took a job for which they were overqualified. You didn't need a college degree for, and they started to question whether a college degree is a good idea. Well, all of those underemployed college graduates, because the economy is growing, are now finding opportunities where they can take advantage of a job that utilizes what they've learned. So it's better for the people that are underemployed, and it's better for the new graduates. I tell my students this year, this is probably the best year to graduate in the last 15 years. You're going to find you'll be able to locate job opportunities, and probably for the first time in a long time, you may find more than one job opportunity, where, again, for the last decade, students were lucky if they found even one opportunity.
Wow. Yeah. And so this is stuff that's just, this is not being reported. And, but, we're going to continue to report it, Dr. Bustler. And I know, that you're, I first of all, I just appreciate you coming on the program so much, number one, and appreciate your expertise in all of this and giving us another side of the story, and also being a professor of finance in our American university system. You don't hear this opinion from people in academia too much. They tend to kind of be the opposite of what you are, sir.
Yeah, they certainly are. And I have a problem. I mean, look, I respect my colleagues and I work with them, but 95% of my colleagues don't agree with my views. And I have to be a little careful about when and how I express my views because the other side tends to be very passionate about their position. And what bothers me a little bit is they tend to be very closed-minded toward the other view. And that's not what's supposed to happen in college. We're supposed to be teaching students, specific skills, but we're primarily teaching them critical thinking skills so they can make good decisions as they go through life and they can sort of figure things out. Well, the way to make good decisions is to gather as much information as possible. So when my colleagues present only one side of an argument, they're really depriving the students of objective information so they can make better decisions. Whenever I'm asked my view, I always say, look, here's what one side would say, here's what the other side would say. Now you figure out which view makes the most sense to you, and that's the view that you should support.
Dr. Bustler, I appreciate it, sir. Thanks so much for being on. I want to remind everybody that we can find your stuff. You've been a featured columnist at Newsmax, The Hill, The Western Journal, townhall.com. Appreciate you, sir. Have a happy new year, okay?
Happy New Year to you, Paul, and thanks for having me.
All righty. Yes, sir. Folks, we're going to, actually, let me kind of pushing a lot of buttons here real quick. First off, I want to go to the Facebook page before we go to break here. We've got Blair. Blair is saying, morning, Conduit. Happy New Year. Happy New Year to you, Blair. Of course, it's not quite here yet. Oh, hang on one second. Wait a second. Let me pull that and push this. Yeah, so 2020 is on its way, though. Okay? We were talking about this just briefly the other day, or the last segment. We do have 2020 on its way. And I don't know about you, and listen, this is just one of those things. You have to indulge me for a second. But I have kind of always been looking forward to this particular year. And I don't know why. Maybe because I used to watch 2020 with Barbara Walters and Hugh Downs after TGIF Fridays on Friday nights. You had your Full House, your Family Matters, and the rest of the shows. I even remember that show, Just the 10 of Us, which has one of the greatest sitcom theme songs ever written, by the way. But so I don't know. 2020, let's just take the ABC News broadcast 2020. That was supposed to mean like you're going to see things 2020, right? I was thinking about this. We want to give you the facts, and we want you to see it 2020. There should have been another show called 2015, just to like one-up them. Well, on 2020, yeah, but we'll go even further. You'll see it even clearer if you watch 2015 on NBC News. But anyway, it didn't actually mean the year 2020, the title of that show, but it got me thinking, wouldn't it be great if 2020 was the year that more people were able to see the facts as they are, not as partisans want them to be, not as the mainstream media wants you to see them, not as the president wants you to see them necessarily, just we are able. Wouldn't it be great if we were able to agree? Now, I know it's an election year, and you say, Paul, that's crazy. I think, though, we may not find out until what the level of agreement is in this country. We may not find out till the beginning of November. What happens if Donald Trump wins in a 48-state landslide? I hope that and pray that 2020 is a year where we are able to see clearly. And collectively as a nation. Obviously, I'm not going to sit here. I don't have all the answers, but I'm also not going to sit here and tell you that I don't think I have a bead on what the truth is and where things are headed. You know what I'm saying? Speaking of that, how much time do I have left? I got a little bit of time here. Hang on a second. Speaking of that, here's this article. And to me, this makes total sense. Like, you want to know why everybody's... when I say everybody, I know it's not the people we're talking to, but you want to know why the radical left has such a problem with Donald Trump? Or let's just say the swamp. You want to know why the swamp has such a problem with him? I think it has to do with this. It's as simple as this. Quote, because you'd be in jail. The real reason Democrats are pushing for Trump's impeachment. Now, you guys know exactly what we're talking about here, right? It was the debate between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. Well, and she was just like, well, I'm just so glad we don't have somebody with your temperament whose finger's next to the nuclear button or something like that. Donald Trump just said, well, that's because you'd be in jail. It's a guy by the name of Robert Bridge who wrote this, the Strategic Culture Foundation. I don't know anything about this, but it's up at Zero Hedge. And he makes some good points. In the time-honored tradition of Machiavellian statecraft, all of the charges being leveled against Donald Trump to remove him from office, namely abuse of power and obstruction of Congress, are essentially the same things the Democratic Party has been guilty of for nearly half a decade. Abusing their powers in a nonstop attack on the executive branch is the reason because they desperately need a get-out-of-jail-free card. Due to the nonstop action in Washington of late, few believe that the present state of affairs between the Democrats and Donald Trump are exclusively due to a telephone call between the U.S. leader and the Ukrainian President Zelensky. If you honestly think this is about a phone call, who out there honestly thinks this was about a phone call about a potential investigation into the Bidens? And it was really about CrowdStrike, by the way, in 2016 and who actually hacked the DNC servers, but I digress. That is only scratching the surface, he writes. Back in April 2016, before Trump had become the Republican presidential nominee, talk of impeachment was already in the air. Donald Trump isn't even the Republican nominee yet, wrote Darren Samuelson in Politico, yet impeachment, he noted, is already on the lips of pundits, newspaper editorials, constitutional scholars, and even a few members of Congress. The timing of Samuelson's article is not a little astonishing, given the Department of Justice had discovered just 1 month earlier, or what they had discovered. In 2016 of March, the DOJ found that the FBI had been employing outside contractors who had access to raw Section 702 Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act data and retained that access after their work with the FBI was completed. That sort of foreign access to sensitive data is highly improper. And, of course, we've seen the IG report from all this. But here's the thing. Does it really just go down to the fact that Trump is now investigating the people who have done a lot of really bad things? Because I saw a meme the other day. This was actually sent to me. Let me pull it up real quick. This is a really good meme. If you think about it, Trump is basically the new boss at a company where employees have been stealing for years. If you think about it, Trump is just the new boss at a company where the employees have been stealing for years. And how many, I guess what I got to know is, since Trump has put in place countless, I would assume countless executive orders, regulations that we don't even know about. And I just wonder how many people's wallets have gotten lighter, have gotten thinner in the last 4 years. Something to think about. Also, if you were a politician, let's say you were a politician, you were as slimy as they come, right? And you had kind of an estimated, and we've seen this here locally in Arkansas, where these politicians, where Jeremy Hutchinson was getting all this money, $12,000 a month from Preferred Family Health Care, whatever, on retainer to pass bills for his clients, and he's now pled guilty and everything else, and we're awaiting sentencing. But there's a certain level of lifestyle that's going to come to that, right? Think about this for a second. If you are, let's say you are a national politician, you're in D.C., you're a senator, you're a congressperson, you're a Democrat, you have been getting money on the sly. And if it's happening here in Arkansas, it's happening in D.C. at a giant, a gargantuan scale even. Then all of a sudden a dude gets in the office that knows the system, knows it's wrong, knows you're taking advantage of the American people you claim to help, and he decides to, for whatever reason, this is blatant speculation, he's starting to cut off your money supply, making it harder. There's some speculation that foreign aid is involved. Will we see this with the Ukrainian money? We do know some pattern where the Ukrainian money gets to Burisma. Burisma then gives a loan to some Latvian company. That company then eventually just gives a direct payment to Hunter Biden, if not other folks. If all of that's being stopped or has been stopped and everything's come to a crawl, there might be some D.C. politicians that are getting phone calls from banks and bankers. You were accustomed to a certain lifestyle, and now all of a sudden, maybe you're having trouble. You're looking at the bank account, you're thinking, I don't know if I can afford this mortgage that I thought everything was going to be fine. It's just something to think about. No one really wants to even speculate, but I have my suspicions. You know what I'm saying? I have my suspicions. All right, folks, we're going to take a break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back here in just a moment.
Of Shandong Province.
As President Trump said just this week, in his words, we rebuilt China over the last 25 years.
Last November, as you know, I traveled to Shandong Province. I met with Chairman Lee. I toured Sun Paper Company along with Mike Preston. While in China, we signed a letter of intent on behalf of the state of Arkansas with Sun Paper, indicating that Sun Paper wanted to put a major bioproducts mill in South Arkansas, in Arkansas.
The Communist Party has set its sights on controlling 90% of the world's most advanced industries, including robotics, biotechnology, and artificial intelligence. To win the commanding heights of the 21st century economy, Beijing has directed its bureaucrats and businesses to obtain American intellectual property, the foundation of our economic leadership, by any means necessary.
Chairman Lee and I met yesterday. Chairman Lee indicated to me that Sun Paper has selected Arkadelphia in Clark County as the location of a $1 billion bioproducts mill.
Beijing now requires many American businesses to hand over their trade secrets as the cost of doing business in China. It also coordinates and sponsors the acquisition of American firms to gain ownership of their creations. Worst of all, Chinese security agencies have masterminded the wholesale theft of American technology, including cutting-edge military blueprints. And using that stolen technology, the Chinese Communist Party is turning plowshares into swords on a massive scale.
Well, thank you all for joining us via Skype from Beijing this morning. Here in Beijing, it is 10 p.m. in the evening. I've had a very successful trip to China.
China now spends as much on its military as the rest of Asia combined. And Beijing has prioritized capabilities to erode America's military advantages on land, at sea, in the air, and in space.
I've spoken at Tsinghua University here in Beijing, which was a treat for me to speak with young Chinese students about Arkansas, and also to talk about the relationship between China and the United States.
China wants nothing less than to push the United States of America from the Western Pacific and attempt to prevent us from coming to the aid of our allies. But they will fail. Beijing is also using its power like never before. Chinese ships routinely patrol around the Senkaku Islands, which are administered by Japan. And while China's leaders stood in the Rose Garden at the White House in 2015 and said that his country had, and I quote, no intention to militarize the South China Sea. Today, Beijing has deployed advanced anti-ship and anti-air missiles atop an archipelago of military bases constructed on artificial islands. China's aggression was on display this week when a Chinese naval vessel came within 45 yards of the USS Decatur as it conducted freedom of navigation operations in the South China Sea, forcing our ship to quickly maneuver to avoid collision. Despite such reckless harassment, the United States Navy will continue to fly, sail, and operate wherever international law allows and our national interests demand. We will not be intimidated, and we will not stand down.
And we'll be calling on multiple prospects in China, as well as continuing our relationship with Sun Paper in Shandong Province.
In recent years, China has taken a sharp U-turn toward control and oppression of its own people. Today, China has built an unparalleled surveillance state, and it's growing more expansive and intrusive, often with the help of U.S. technology. And when it comes to religious freedom, a new wave of persecution is crashing down on Chinese Christians, Buddhists, and Muslims. Last month, Beijing shut down one of China's largest underground churches. Across the country, authorities are tearing down crosses, burning Bibles, and imprisoning believers. And Beijing has now reached a deal with the Vatican that gives the avowedly atheist Communist Party a direct role in appointing Catholic bishops. For China's Christians, these are desperate times.
So, do you like him as a candidate?
I think he's brought a lot to the table. It's not my message. You know, I worry about the party in terms of expanding our base and what the message does to our recruitment of Hispanics, outreach to minorities. And so you've got to worry about the fall election and whether this is a message that's going to carry in Michigan, Ohio, and Florida, and those states that we need to carry.
The American people deserve to know. In response to the strong stand that President Trump has taken, Beijing is pursuing a comprehensive and coordinated campaign to undermine support for the president, our agenda, and our nation's most cherished ideals.
I think you've got to listen to what he says and how he conducts himself. And I don't know that he would be that different from what he is now in negotiating with Vladimir Putin. So,
you think that's a good thing or a bad thing?
No, I don't think it's a good thing. You know, we need people who, in the presidency, that understand how the world works, understands that there's a time for bluster and there's a time for reason.
The Chinese Communist Party is rewarding or coercing American businesses, movie studios, universities, think tanks, scholars, journalists, and local, state, and federal officials.
And then, Chairman, you'll look out in the audience and you'll see multiple members of the governor's cabinet. We're also here to support you. You'll see multiple members of the state legislative assembly. They're here to support you, and specifically Senator Caldwell, Senator Ingram, Representative Murdoch, Representative Hollowell. These are your senators and your representatives now. You call on them, and they're going to help you. Guarantee it. And Senator English, I saw you out there too. Thank you for being here as well.
As we speak, Beijing is employing a whole-of-government approach, using political, economic, and military tools as well as propaganda to advance its influence and benefit its interests in the United States.
think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
Here we go. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks so much for being with us. This is hour number 2. Thanks so much. You have found the intersection of conservative ideas and reality, where we are building a liberty machine here. So we have, let's see, this hour, 2 more hours tomorrow. Then it'll be New Year's Eve, New Year's Day. Hang on 1 second. 2020 is on its way. Also, new things are coming for Conduit in 2020. Obviously, Conduit News is going to be transitioning to all digital formats starting January 2nd. So you want to stay tuned. You want to reach out to us and let us get your information. We want you to sign up for our newsletter or like us on Facebook. The easiest thing you could do is just go to YouTube and subscribe. I've been saying this for a year. Subscribe, subscribe, subscribe. Click the little bell to receive notifications. This will be the easiest way to still get the same great news, great insights, new shows, new formats. Just stay tuned. You guys are going to like it, and we're going to be able to reach even more people. Because what we've realized is we've got the information. We just got to get it. We got to get it to the people so that they understand what's going on in their state government, what's going on in their local community. Because, folks, let me just tell you something right now. If limited government conservatism cannot work here in Arkansas, then where's it going to work? You tell me, where's it going to work? I mean, we're in the heart of America, where we've got most people in this state believe, issue by issue, go down the line, very conservative, traditional American values, idea of individual rights, a live and let live mentality. That's most people. They just want to raise their families. And so if limited government conservatism can't work here, where can it work? Now, you'd say, well, we have that now. Well, I mean, some of you might say that. There have been some good things that have happened, but we've been voting for conservative Republicans in this state now for 10 years, and what we found out is that we really actually haven't voted for conservatives necessarily. We have sometimes, but we have voted for Republicans, though. We're voting red, and we're getting blue results. So we're going to try to change that by getting more and more information to the folks, to the people, because I know if they've got the information, they'll be able to make a more informed decision at the voting box. And, this is a big deal because we got primary season coming up. And here in Arkansas now, because so many people are voting for Republicans, and Republicans have supermajorities in both chambers of the legislature, your primaries are your general election, essentially. Because Democrats really don't have a chance. I mean, Democrats can't even put a person on the ballot to challenge a sitting Republican U.S. Senator. Tom Cotton. Oh, man, every time I say it, it gets funnier, doesn't it? That the Democrat Party is so inept that they can't even get somebody on the ballot. And it's the Democrats' fault because none of them wanted to run against Tom Cotton anyway. So they find some guy who nobody knows. They find this Mahoney. I know he ran for Congress one time, but they find some guy, and it's because none of those sitting state senators wanted to go to 75 counties and waste their time. They won't tell you that. Well, they will. They'll tell somebody that, and then that somebody will tell me. But they just didn't want to do it. And so then you have this incompetence and yada, yada, yada. Nobody's going to be on the ballot for the Democrat Party for 2020 challenging Tom Cotton. Oh, man, it's really, really funny. Jenny, we're talking about some TGI, some classic TGIF sitcoms on ABC last hour. I know. I know, right? It really is the end of the year. Jenny on Facebook says, do you mean 8's enough? No, I mean just the 10 of us. I know what you're talking about, 8's enough. Just the 10 of us was after 8's enough, and it was about a basketball coach and his, 9 or 8 daughters or 8 children and his wife. Yeah. It was called Just the 10 of Us. Greatest theme song. I mean, the show was meh, shows whatever. But the theme song is one of the greatest theme songs ever for a sitcom. So, Jenny, I appreciate the help, but no, I was talking about this sitcom called Just the 10 of Us. Reggie writing, can you imagine how the snowflakes will react in 2020? Yes, I can, and I don't think it's going to be pretty. If Trump wins, it's going to be really bad. It's going to be a lot worse than just that girl screaming. At least that's my fear. I think. Remember when the Arab Spring happened? Well, the Arab Spring or whatever. It started with just a guy in Tunisia that lit himself on fire. Joe asked me this. Joe's not here today, but Joe asked me the other day. He was like, how bad do you think it'll get? And I honestly thought about it, and my gut feeling was I think the left, I think there'll be somebody that'll, I know that sounds horrible, but this is the mental instability that we have right now going on in our country, where you have that facts are kind of great. You have people that believe this way, and then you have people that believe 180 degrees opposite. There is this, and so if Trump wins again, after the media will have told them for 18 months that he's going to lose, just like they told you with Hillary Clinton. Oh, Hillary Clinton, there's no way Trump can win. That's why so many of these people had to go to therapy afterwards, because they were told that Trump was so terrible. But then they were also told there was no way he could win. Obviously, the FBI thought differently because they had an insurance policy. And for the life of me, how anybody on the left, that you don't like Donald Trump, fine, but how you can just ignore how the FBI, we have text messages of the FBI forming an insurance policy in case the president gets elected. And we're going to have faith in these people? You're going to have faith in the 17 U.S. intelligence. John Brennan actually admitted that out of the 17, it was really only 3. 17 U.S. intelligence agencies say that these people hide behind this faux authority in these government institutions that are made up of men who have an enormous amount of power. And the question is not, well, why would you use the power again? No, the question is, why wouldn't you? Because we're humans. And that power exists, and it existed with the FBI. It existed with the NSA. It exists with the CIA. We still haven't actually heard from the whistleblower. By the way, we got state news to get to, but while I'm on this, I missed this last I missed this last hour. Twitter scrubs viral Trump retweet of alleged hoax blower's name, the whistleblower's name, blames glitch before banning the user. I mean, so the Silicon Valley, obviously, they believe Trump won because there's too much freedom of information, free exchange of information on the internet and their platforms. Twitter is willing to kill its own business model just to appease its overlords in the deep state. I'm serious. I mean, that's what's going to end up happening here. But none of that's, it is what it is. We all know what is in store for us in 2020 are interesting times, to say the least. And that is, I wish you lived through interesting times. That's not a good thing. Again, my hope, though, is 2020 actually is a year where we see clearly, more and more people see clearly what we're up against. And it's not necessarily just a Republican and Democrat. It's different than that. It's much different than that. That's why there were so many Republicans, and still are, you don't hear from them as much anymore, that are still never Trumpers. It's because there's something else going on behind the scenes. And I just hope it becomes very clear. And I think all of us, just collectively, should be praying for justice right now. with what's been going on. And this reaction against the president is not because these people are patriots. It's not because they have, all of a sudden, they care about the Constitution. All of a sudden, they care about the emoluments clause. These people, folks, they don't care anything about the Constitution ever. They haven't for decades. Now, all of a sudden, the Constitution, we're constitutional scholars, and this isn't about politics. It's about the Constitution. No, it's not. It's about this. Because you'd be in jail. That's what Donald Trump said to Hillary Clinton. If he was president, you'd be in jail. That is what it's about. That's what this whole thing is about. Okay. Forgive me. Thank you for indulging me. Let's see here. We have this story. One second. Oh, yeah. Okay. So did you hear about the city of Fayetteville? They are upset because the residents of the city of Fayetteville are feeding the deer. That's right. And the city is calling on residents to obey the state's new law and to stop feeding deer. How progressive. I thought Fayetteville was supposed to be some kind of progressive city. And then all of a sudden, no, we don't. Oh, that's because not feeding the deer actually is protecting the deer. Oh, yeah, okay. My bad. Not feeding the deer. This is according to the experts of the Arkansas Game and Fish. Stacey Ryburn headlines City calls on residents to obey state's law. Stop feeding the deer. City of Fayetteville wants residents to follow. When in the world? I mean, how in the world did we allow the government to take on this particular responsibility? I know there's one thing about wildlife management, but don't feed the deer. They'll become zombie deer. It's because of chronic wasting disease. By the way, how many deer have died of chronic wasting disease that we know of? 0. That's the number. We have no idea how long they had actually had this disease, number one, until we started testing for it. The city of Fayetteville wants residents to follow a state law passed this year prohibiting the baiting and feeding of deer. The law is intended to prevent the spread of chronic wasting disease. Now, you notice me, I don't really have much belief in these guys. I think you have private scientists that say different than these public scientists that are advising the Arkansas Game and Fish. There's a brain trust in all these state wildlife management agencies, whether it's the Arkansas Game and Fish or their counterparts in Missouri, Oklahoma, Louisiana, wherever. And they all are having the same ideas. Yet there are other scientists, private sector scientists that say chronic wasting disease has always been here. It's in the soil. Get over it. There's even some people that are speculating that the deer have a way to fight it off. That there will be. It's all I'm saying is there's that herd up in was it New Mexico or Colorado, wherever. That herd is now thriving. That had it originally. There's now others that aren't. It's a mixed bag because it's nature. You know what I'm saying? It's nature. And they have this weird idea that you can't allow the deer to feed and congregate, yet that's what they do among acorn trees. I mean, the deer that I killed this year, I moved into the hardwoods because the acorn crop was so good. I mean, and yet there were deer all around me. I had 3 bucks around me because that's what they do. They're going to feed together. That's what deer do. They eat together. Well, they're in the corn feeder, though. It's different. No, it's not. And you should listen to the people who are anyway. I digress. Let me get back to the article at hand. I'm sorry. So, the baiting and feeding of deer causes the animals to unnaturally congregate. I'm just curious if I haven't got an answer to this, but can you spread chronic wasting disease from deer to deer mating? I'm curious how you're going to stop. If chronic wasting disease is spread through the mating process, I guess I don't understand how you think you're ever going to combat this disease. It's only through the nose. It's only through it says here, which helps the disease spread through direct or indirect contact, according to the information from the Federal Centers of Disease Control. Chronic wasting disease is a fatal neurological disease that affects deer, elk, and moose. Again, here in Arkansas, I mean, I've talked to folks. The deer we know that have this disease have either been killed by a human or a car. Oh, excuse me, but I guess that'd be both humans, right? It's like cars don't kill people. People driving cars. Cars don't kill deer. The animals transmit the disease directly through bodily fluids. That's pretty general. Bodily fluids. The disease can be indirectly transferred through contaminated soil. You mean it's in the soil that the deer walk on and eat from? Food and water. I don't know, man. It just seems like if the Arkansas Game and Fish were real serious, if they were actually serious about this, we would be hearing about deer prophylactics. But we're not, are we? Anyway, Fayetteville, please quit feeding the deer inside the city limits. Now, you can still feed deer during hunting season, which really honestly blows this whole thing. It tells you how serious they really believe this. That they really just don't want a deer hunter revolt on their hands. If you told a bunch of hunters that you can no longer feed your deer during deer season, you're going to have a lot of people upset about it. I mean, a lot of people. Let's see. The concern is if people feed them, then they're drawing them into these more urban places, and it's just going to have more potential cause for more incidents between cars and deer. Well, that's a totally different reason. Don't feed the deer because there'll be more deer here, and then we'll hit them with our cars and cause them. That's a totally different reason than don't feed the deer because we don't want chronic wasting disease to spread. Anyway, I don't know. You know, a lot of people think that the reason this is the reason we even have this is because the Arkansas Game and Fish brought it into Arkansas when they brought in the elk. They wanted elk back in Arkansas. And so they bring in this elk herd, and people think that the Arkansas Game and Fish themselves are the ones that brought chronic wasting disease here. I'm just telling you what people say. You know, hunters talk. Hunters talk. You know, I'll tell you this. And because I've talked with politicians about this, I've talked with government with elected representatives about this issue with the Arkansas Game and Fish, and they're not doing themselves any favors when they are constantly caught in. Well, there's just all kinds of different incidents that pop up with Arkansas Game and Fish. I don't know if it's the enforcement side. I don't know if it's the management side of things. I think we would all agree there's a purpose for the Arkansas Game and Fish. There's a purpose for wildlife management. But it just kind of gets to the point where, you know, there are multiple examples of being lied to by them in one way or the other. I mean, it happened to me personally this last season when it came to their checkpoints on this chronic wasting disease nonsense. And you just start to think, does there need to be some adjustments? Does there need to be a constitutional amendment here in the state of Arkansas that undoes the near godlike power they have over our wildlife? I mean, you've already had the courts essentially say the Fourth Amendment trumps the Arkansas Game and Fish. That was a big deal because for years, Arkansas Game and Fish was going around saying that the Fourth Amendment doesn't apply. Well, they wouldn't actually say that, but in their deeds and actions and the way they argued that the Fourth Amendment doesn't apply to them. And we have a court that says, no, actually the Fourth Amendment does apply to the Arkansas Game and Fish. There's a lot of people starting to think about needing to reform or rein in. I personally would support electing commissioners. I would support electing people who serve as your on the Arkansas Game. I'm telling you this. So the appointment process, The appointment process gets way, way, way too in the weeds, and the good old boy system. It'd be the same. People talk about appointing judges, and it's like, no, I'm not for appointing judges. I know there's money involved. See, the thing you don't understand is there's money involved whether you do the appointment process or there's money involved whether you do the electoral process. There just is undue influence. I think the hunters that are out in the brush, that are out doing this with their families. The Game and Fish say they want more hunters. Sometimes they don't act like it. Again, not all Game and Fish. I'm just saying it's getting to the point where it's a little ridiculous. And this chronic wasting disease, a lot of people think it's also just a way to get more money too. Grants and that sort of thing. Anyway, let me know what you think. Sound off on the Facebook page. We got to take a break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back here in just a moment. Folks, as a taxpayer or business owner, I know the government rarely gives the people a break. Big government politicians seem to always want more money from us, taxpayers. So if you want to support the work we're doing right here at Conduit News, bringing you the truth, then why not consider giving less money to the government that never stops overspending and overtaxing us by giving a tax-deductible donation to Conduit for Commerce, the premier organization in Arkansas that never stops promoting small business and limited government. Just go to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Support Our Cause. From there, you can decide if you want to donate monthly or one time. Give the government that's using your tax dollars to grow and grow less, and give the people fighting for your values more. Conduitforcommerce.org.
Exposing the truth and everything the Marble Palace establishment keep trying to cover up. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Honestly, I like the idea. I really do. I love the idea of being an Arkansas Game and Fish officer in terms of like a career path. When you just think about, get to be outdoors. You know what I mean? Who doesn't like that? Like, I'm going to be able to be outdoors, and I'm going to be able to do all this, cool stuff. You know what I mean? Like, the idea itself is kind of neat, But then you got to think of, like, what's the purpose of here's some of the folks on the Facebook page. Overregulation, people talking about the Game and Fish needs serious oversight. The government has too much power over the Game and Fish. Daniel Boone would be shocked. Randy on Facebook, remove all bureaucrats, elected positions only. I mean, it's something to think about. When I say the idea of it would be neat, but then you get into the practice of it, and I'm telling you, this buck I killed this year was awesome. I mean, it was such a great experience. I've never experienced anything like it. It was in the pre-rut, never seen the deer that active. Of course, I've only been hunting for about 7 years, and I've been taught how to do this, and it's been fascinating. It's been one of the coolest things I've ever done in my life. And the thought would never cross my mind where I would want to regulate that experience for somebody else. And I know the potential temporary evils that could accompany that, of people poaching and of people doing things they shouldn't be doing. I get that. But just in my own personal opinion, I have to question why anybody would want to try to regulate the type of hunting experience that is so personal to somebody. It's just these are just the things that I think about. I don't know. Folks, we got half an hour left of the show. Don't go anywhere. Back here in just a moment.
As we speak, Beijing is employing a whole-of-government approach, using political, economic, and military tools, as well as propaganda, to advance its influence and benefit its interests in the United States.
And I have wanted to welcome back to Arkansas Chairman Chu. Please give Chairman Chu a round of applause.
China is also applying this power in more proactive ways than ever before to exert influence and interfere in the domestic policy and politics of this country.
Chairman Chu, I got to know as he is the CEO and chairman of Shandong Ruyi Technology Group out of Shandong Province.
Over the past 17 years, China's GDP has grown ninefold. It's become the second largest economy in the world. Much of this success was driven by American investment in China. And the Chinese Communist Party has also used an arsenal of policies inconsistent with free and fair trade, including tariffs, quotas, currency manipulation, forced technology transfer, intellectual property theft, and industrial subsidies that are handed out like candy to foreign investment.
We've been to Shandong Province a number of times since I've been governor. We've called on people, and Chairman Chu gave us the opportunity to meet with him at Ruyi, at their technology group there in Shandong, and saw his incredible facility. We asked him to visit Arkansas. He did. So, Chairman Chu, we're delighted to have you here. I'm excited about signing this agreement with you, and I welcome you to Arkansas.
These policies have built Beijing's manufacturing base at the expense of its competitors, especially the United States of America.
And I wanted to recognize Chairman Lee to my right, who is the founder of Sun Paper of Shandong Province in China. I also want to recognize Secretary Ma of Shandong Province.
As President Trump said just this week, in his words, we rebuilt China over the last 25 years.
Last November, as you know, I traveled to Shandong Province. I met with Chairman Lee. I toured Sun Paper Company along with Mike Preston. While in China, we signed a letter of intent on behalf of the state of Arkansas with Sun Paper, indicating that Sun Paper wanted to put a major bioproducts mill in South Arkansas.
Need your daily news fix? Don't forget to tune in to Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, here we go. Welcome back. Thanks so much for being with us, folks. 870-275-9799. I want to remind you, coming up tomorrow will be here. It'll be our last day on terrestrial radio, but we'll be back on Thursday with our new shows, new formats. You want to stay tuned, you want to like us, subscribe to us, Conduit News on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, all of it. Okay, so you can stay in contact with us as the show moves to an all-digital format. Thanks so much for being with us. Okay, in one of the wildest stories, in my opinion, in all of 2020, you want to know what one of the wildest stories were in 2020? For me, for the state of Arkansas, and just in my opinion, it was this case where this guy out of Arizona, this lawyer who practices law in Arizona, practices law in Utah, and practices law in Fayetteville, that this guy was indicted on human trafficking charges, smuggling, well, not smuggling, but you're not supposed to take advantage of the immigration agreement we have with the Marshall Islands to smuggle Marshallese pregnant women and pay them for their children, like he was doing. Arkansas Democrat Gazette reported that 9 out of 10 adoptions in Benton County were Marshallese kids. This has been going on for years. This is weird. This is beyond weird. There is so much more to this story, my gut tells me, than just some lawyer trying to make money. he's pled innocent or not guilty. Here's an update on it. So, this guy was the assessor. Was he the assessor? What was he? County assessor. Okay, his name is Paul Peterson. Okay, he is the assessor in Arizona in Maricopa County. And they wanted to remove him. He said, "I'm not going anywhere." They said, "Okay, well we'll let you appeal it." And they've now voted to remove him. Okay? Because they discovered thousands of files related to an Arizona elected official's this is Paul Peterson, on his government laptop. So his government laptop, paid for by taxpayers of Arizona, of Maricopa County, they found a bunch of files related to this whole situation on the government laptop. Members of the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors spoke with disgust at times about County Assessor Paul Peterson during a meeting in Phoenix. Peterson had pleaded innocent in Arizona, Arkansas, and Utah to charges involving the adoption of babies from the Marshall Islands through his law firm. Prosecutors say he illegally paid women up to $40,000 to have their babies in the United States and then put the infants up for adoption. Charges include human smuggling, sale of child, and fraud. Listen, and I know. The government in these charges has said that the adoptive parents are not suspects. So the parents that have that adopted children through him are not suspects. I get that. I understand that. However, it is a little odd to me how the information. I would just want to know. It's like it's not like going to get your car fixed. You know what I mean? Like, everybody's got a guy, right? Oh, you need to check out. You got this problem with your car? All right, you need to go down here. You go to this mechanic. He'll treat you right. You know what I mean? He'll solve your problems. It'll be a fair price. He'll be honest with you. You need to go down to this guy. Here's the address. This is the mechanic I use. I swear by him. He's a good guy. He won't steer you wrong. All right. Is that how it is when you're in the market to adopt a child, when you're looking to adopt a child? And in the market is a terrible phrase, but in this case, it's exactly what you're in the market. I'm in the market for a child. I'll pay this law. Oh, you got a guy for that, huh? Yeah, I got a guy. He's an attorney. He practices a little bit of law here in Fayetteville area, in the Northwest Arkansas area, but he's also licensed to practice down in Arizona. He also is licensed to practice in Utah, and he has this little agreement. He's got this guy in the Marshall Islands that finds women that are hard up for money and gets them to adopt their kids out. Of course, the women, because of the cultural difference, they don't understand that adoption means they're never going to see their child again. They think adoption means something different because of the cultural differences, but I got a guy for that. I don't know. It just seems to me like I'm not saying that there isn't some benign way to have used Paul Peterson to adopt a child. I'm saying that after a time, if you're trying to adopt a kid and you're wanting to adopt a kid, it seems like there would be red flags for me anyway. But like, hang on, wait a second. 9 out of 10 adoptions in Benton County are Marshallese children. What's actually going on here? And why in the world did he think he could get away with this? Again, this is one of the strangest stories of the entire year. Content found on his government laptop, Paul Peterson, and noted in a report to the board included text messages of pregnant women being threatened when they changed their minds about giving up their newborns. Got to be a common thing, right? To say this is disturbing to all of us on the board is certainly an understatement, said Bill Gates, the board chairman. The panel unanimously voted to ask the county attorney to start the process to remove Peterson on the basis of willful misconduct. The Republican was arrested and charged in a scheme involving the adoption of babies from the Marshall Islands. During the special meeting on Friday in Arizona, board members released the report on a forensic analysis of his county-purchased laptop. Evidence indicated that someone had attempted to wipe the computer clean twice in the past 2 months. It held more than 2,000 documents tied to Peterson's adoption business, The report said, including screenshots of texts between him and some of these pregnant women. You know, these laptops can be funny things, can't they? The report said Peterson told them he would have them evicted from where they were staying and claimed he could sever the parental rights of a father who refused to sign adoption papers. Quote, "All you girls work for me, not the other way around," read one text. Well, we got a little iceberg slim action going on here. What's going on, Peterson? Sounds like you're keeping the pimp hand strong in the relationship. The story doesn't make any sense. All you girls work for me, not the other way around. So I decided real quick, I wanted to do a little research during the break. Let me pull this over here. So I just decided to Google, okay, Marshallese children, Benton County. This headline, surge of Marshallese adoptions in Northwest Arkansas. This is from UALR Public Radio back in 2018. Surge of Marshallese adoptions in Northwest Arkansas leads to calls for reform. As many as 15,000 people from the Republic of the Marshall Islands have moved to Northwest Arkansas to work, obtain health care, and raise their children. But unlike the American nuclear family, islanders traditionally may relinquish their children to the care of relatives and clan members if in dire need. By extension, a growing number of impoverished pregnant Marshallese women in Arkansas are consenting to private legal adoptions to improve their children's welfare as well as to secure medical and living expenses. But some may not understand that they risk losing all contact with their child under traditional Arkansas adoption rules. This autumn, community advocates and lawyers are laboring to protect the interests of both island birth moms and parents wishing to adopt Marshallese babies. So that's just an initial write-up back in 2018. This has been going on, I think, in 2014, 2015. And they're just talking about, hey, there's something not right here. But behind all of this is an attorney making money. He's the guy. He's like the mechanic, you know. I got a guy who's really good at this. You need a kid? I can take care of that for you. Again, I'm not saying that they're not very, very happy Marshallese children with American parents right now that use this guy. I'm sure you're very happy. I'm sure there's some people that really wanted to adopt a child. I get it. I understand. But 9 out of 10 adoptions in Benton County were from the Marshall Islands? And if you read this indictment, there's a guy in the Marshall Islands that was procuring these women. A majority of private adoptions. Listen to this. Again, UALR Public Radio, 2018. All right. A majority of private adoptions in Northwest Arkansas now involve Marshallese birth mothers. According to Melissa Leland, she's founder and president of the Arkansas Coalition of Marshallese, headquartered in Springdale. The nonprofit agency assists migrant islanders with legal and residency questions, but as a Marshallese court interpreter, Leland says she's witnessing too many Marshallese child adoption consent proceedings. Quote, "The culprit of all this is money," she says. Unemployment in the Republic of the Marshall Islands hovers around 36%. That's led thousands of Marshallese to legally migrate to the United States under a special compact from the Marshall Islands. In the U.S., Leland says once here, a growing number of pregnant Marshallese women are engaging in private adoptions, lured by offers of cash and comfortable futures for their children. That's where Paul Peterson comes in. But sometimes they don't know that it's a closed adoption, that the child won't come back to them. Traditional Marshallese adoptions back home never require paperwork. But in Arkansas, private adoptions are a complex legal procedure. My goodness. Washington County Circuit Court Judge Doug Martin, who hears adoption consent cases, estimates that as many as 90% in recent years involve Marshallese children. Oh, my goodness. All right. Well, so I mean, you tell me. That's just one story. All you got to do is Google Marshallese children, Benton County. Let's see here. Attorney faces, and it just goes on and on. Marshallese migrants fallout in Arkansas. That's U.S. News. This is March 7th. Then we have March 6th. Marshall Islands migrants face health challenges. Anyway, this whole thing. Marshallese adoptions fuel a lucrative practice for some. This is November 28th of 2018. The civilbeat.org. It's a Honolulu magazine of some kind. In 2017, an Arizona attorney named Paul Peterson bought a 4-bedroom split-level house in a suburb of Salt Lake City and started using it as a hub for black market adoptions. This back in 2018 being reported. Peterson arranges for plane tickets for pregnant women traveling some 5,000 miles from the Republic of the Marshall Islands to give their children for adoption. Covers their expenses. At any one time, 10 or more pregnant women live in the house, one of the residents told a Civil Beat reporter. A treaty known as the Compact of Free Association bars Marshallese women intending to place a child for adoption from traveling to the U.S. without special permission. Okay. Both the U.S. State Department and the Central Adoption Authority in the Marshall Islands confirmed to Civil Beat that pregnant women are not permitted to travel to the United States without visas if they intend to give up their child for adoption. Yet 20 years later, Peterson and a small number of other private adoption attorneys openly fly Marshallese women to the U.S. who plan to adopt out their children. They cover expenses such as airfare, room and board, and match them with adoptive families, opening the door to the very abuses the law and treaty were designed to halt. The lawyers who get thousands of dollars per adoption are undermining the official process and its safeguards. All along the way, authorities from immigration agents at the airport in the Marshallese capital to family court judges in far-flung U.S. states fail to stop the flow of babies. Now, I understand the courts in the northwest part of the state here were raising red flags about this. Obviously, you had reports that were raising red flags about this. But there's, again, something about it that I think is a lot more complex than we even know. But we'll have to wait and see. Again, one of the strangest stories to me in 2019. Sorry, did I say 2020 earlier? Well, it may be a strange story in 2020, but one of the strangest stories to me in 2019 was this one about Paul Peterson, this Arizona county official who's practicing law in 3 states and who's making a ton of money adopting Marshallese children to American parents. We're going to take a break. I'm going to reset here. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back in just a moment.
As we speak, Beijing is employing a whole-of-government approach, using political, economic, and military tools as well as propaganda to advance its influence and benefit its interests in the United States.
And I have wanted to welcome back to Arkansas Chairman Chu. Please give Chairman Chu a round of applause.
China is also applying this power in more proactive ways than ever before to exert influence and interfere in the domestic policy and politics of this country.
Chairman Chu, I got to know as he is the CEO and chairman of Shandong Ruyi Technology Group out of Shandong Province.
Over the past 17 years, China's GDP has grown 9-fold. It's become the second largest economy in the world. Much of this success was driven by American investment in China. And the Chinese Communist Party has also used an arsenal of policies inconsistent with free and fair trade, including tariffs, quotas, currency manipulation, forced technology transfer, intellectual property theft, and industrial subsidies that are handed out like candy to foreign investment.
We've been to Shandong Province a number of times since I've been governor. We've called on people, and Chairman Chu gave us the opportunity to meet with him at Rui, at their technology group there in Shandong, and saw his incredible facility. We asked him to visit Arkansas. He did. So Chairman Chu, we're delighted to have you here. I'm excited about signing this agreement with you, and I welcome you to Arkansas.
These policies have built Beijing's manufacturing base at the expense of its competitors, especially the United States.
Available now from aristocrats serving Arkansas. From Zenata Rhino Collection. The fragrance of backroom deals. Nepotism. The aroma of higher taxes. Subliminal deception. Deep state. Ace. Made right here in Arkansas by a taxpayer-funded Chinese factory. Every bottle carefully crafted for you. Gender neutral. Nothing says aristocrat like Essence of Bureaucrat. Essence of Bureaucrat by Asa.
Available now in the Marble Palace gift shop.
Paul Harrell parody.
All right, welcome. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks so much for being with us. Turn all these down here as we kind of wind things down. Okay, so a few of your Facebook comments. All right, let's get to this. We have, we're talking about the Arkansas Game and Fish. All right, I love where this audience goes with things. All right, so we have this conversation amongst a few of us. Jenny on Facebook writes, well, they don't want us to eat meat, so it does not surprise me that they overregulate our hunting rights. Now, that's interesting. Talking about the United Nations and those on the radical environmental left that want to control cow flatulence, and they think that that's contributing to global warming, so we need to eat less meat. Meat is good for you, by the way. Meat is very, very nutritious and good for you. It was, it was back during the Dark Ages that the meat and stuff, that all went to your nobles and your kings, and then the commoners, they just had bread, pretty much. Anyway, just wanted you guys to know that little interesting tidbit. So it's not surprising that they overregulate our hunting rights. Then Randy says, at least untreated meat. And then we have Jenny chiming in and says, they want us to eat lab meat, which is a disgusting thought. Jackie says, Soylent Green is people. Let's see, we keep going. Let's see here. All right, now, are we talking about that mystery meat, those mystery meat burgers? Somebody said something about that, I think. Anyway, yeah, I mean, so they've got this plant-based, I don't know, I don't trust anything. It's a plant-based burger now. It's the Impossible Burger, Impossible Meat. It's plant-based. And what they've essentially done is they have done these commercials because Burger King now is serving what's called the Impossible Whopper. And they have these commercials where they bite into the Impossible Whopper. And they say, oh, that's good. Yeah, let's go whenever you believe that that's plant. Really? It tastes just like meat. Yeah, it tastes. And it reminds me of this classic, absolute classic, okay? You guys know what I'm talking about. Sir, did you know you were drinking Columbia decaffeinated coffee crystals? Chris Farley, what? Because none of it's real coffee. He gets furious, and he's like, why you? Tosses over the table and just starts to, shake the guy. Until I'm just like, why isn't there somebody that'll do this on one of these Impossible Whopper commercials? It's like, did you know, sir, that you are eating a plant that's grown in a lab and it's meant to taste like meat? You're eating an Impossible Whopper? What? Yeah, I don't know. It's weird. I understand their stock is going, pretty good if you're going to invest in that kind of thing. Not me personally, but I just got a weird. I mean, you know what? If you want a burger, eat a burger. Eat the real thing. Eat meat. It's good for you. It's all the other stuff that we put in our food and all the other. That's the stuff that's bad for you, not meat. And that's like the most basic thing that you need on this planet is meat. It's all the other stuff that maybe you don't need. You know what I'm saying? Like sugar. That's not good for you. We've known that forever. But hey, you know what? 20 years, sugar's good for you. We used to think it was bad, but now it's good for you. And eggs are bad for you again. That's going to be a thing as well. One thing we didn't cover, this broke Talk Business and Politics back on the 23rd. We kind of had a lengthy Christmas break here. Optometrists are asking the Supreme Court to rehear their petition. So the Supreme Court sides with the ophthalmologists. You just got to call it like we see it. The Supreme Court sides with the ophthalmologists, says you have to count the signatures. We're trying to overthrow this law that was passed by 2 committees, 2 chambers, and signed by the governor to deregulate optometry, to let them practice with the way they're trained. And the ophthalmologists, they have a conniption fit. Really, the medical society has a conniption fit. They've got to do this to teach the reformers a lesson. The folks that care about more choice, lower prices, more competition, and better health care, the medical society has got to teach them a lesson because they got this one small victory and they don't want a flurry. They're trying to make an example out of the optometrists, right? It was their one loss. You'd think they'd take their ball and go home. They won everything else, meaning they defeated all other attempts to reform and free up people to practice their scope of practice. The one thing they lost was the optometrists, and that's because there's so many optometrists in Arkansas, and there's fewer ophthalmologists. Now the ophthalmologists are saying, no, we're going to make sure, the medical society, we're going to make sure we get this thing defeated, so we'll show them what it's like. And we'll say, you will never do this again, or we'll just go ahead and file another petition, get signatures, and get it thrown off the ballot. The people that were collecting these signatures were openly lying to people. I'm telling you, I don't know how you regulate that, but they were openly lying to people. I had a conversation with one of them. Openly lying to people trying to get signatures saying, this is going to be bad for your safety, bad for your health, not knowing that no one's going to be forced to go to an optometrist for these procedures that they already know how to do. Oklahoma's been doing it for 20 years. And, we're over here in Arkansas like, no, we want to keep access to care. We want to keep barriers. We want to keep barriers that prevent us from getting access to care anyway. Let's see what else we got. We got to end the show. We're going to be back here tomorrow for New Year's Eve. Tomorrow's New Year's Eve. 2020 is on its way. Arkansas, thank you so much for listening. Be safe.